Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. We are continuing to read in a chapter of fasting. Yesterday we completed the part that talks about the intention of fasting and when you have to remember your intention for fasting during the fard siyam, the month of Ramadan, and also every other fard and obligatory fasting such as kafarat and nadr, pledges, and also the atonement fasting. And that we should try to remember our intention every night, and that could be as simple as preparation for the suhoor. That could be your intention. If it occurred to your mind that you're fasting tomorrow, that is enough as an intention. It's not a specific ceremony that you have to engage into to confirm that you are fasting. Although some scholars like Imam Malik said it is a continuous act of worship. This is a summary. Continuous act of worship, sawm mutatabi', it is not uninterrupted, and one intention of fasting the whole month at the beginning of the month should be sufficient. And of course, if that is the case, then if it is interrupted by travel or by menses or something, then it is better for that person. It's not better. They have to repeat the intention. They have to repeat the intention of fasting the rest of Ramadan once they have interrupted. They've concluded the woman concluded her menses or he concluded his travels. Now, who is permitted or has an excuse not to fast during the month of Ramadan? We know that if an elderly person whom is weakened and harmed by fasting, they do not have to fast. And also the sick person as well does not have to fast. And of course, there are some people who should not fast, such as a woman during her menstrual cycle or postpartum period. It is forbidden for her to fast. And the traveler also, he has an excuse not to fast as well. And also, and also a lady who is pregnant or breastfeeding, if she is weakened, or not even weakened, if she is worried about the health, her own health or the health of the child, she also has an excuse not to fast. And they've included other things, qiyasan, by making an analogy to this, such as somebody who works a very hard labor job in the heat, for instance, and it could be dangerous for him to fast because he can go into dehydration or heat, like a heat shock or something like this. What do you call it? Like heat stroke, yeah. Heat stroke or something like this. I should know the word stroke. So if somebody is qiyasan, making an analogy and compared to these people, the illah is one. It's the same reason behind it, is that there's a difficulty. If there's definite difficulty, that is when a person is allowed not to fast. And as you know, the menstrual cycle and the postpartum period, it is forbidden to fast, and she has to make up for those days. Now,
what of the people that play soccer?
Of course not. He's asking about people.
It's a profession.
If they're okay. If they're traveling, if they're during the travel, yes. But they don't all travel for soccer. For the soccer itself, no. This is not something serious. It's a game. It should be delayed, or you should just suck it up and play and fast. But you don't break your fast for something trivial as playing a game of soccer. Today, actually, I asked a scholar whom I ask frequently, because somebody asked me a question. This person sent me a question. He says that he is somebody who wakes up so hungry that he has to eat during the day, to the extent that he, during Ramadan, to be able to fast, he would actually take a vacation the whole month of Ramadan. If he makes any kind of effort, just regular effort, he suffers. And he's done that. And he's saying that he can't take a vacation this Ramadan. What does he do? Is he allowed to break his fast or not? So I asked He says no, he's not allowed to break the fast for that. He should do his best. Of course, if he, during the daytime, legitimately starts feeling dizzy or starts feeling symptoms of dehydration or something, then he becomes sick. Then he has the ruling of somebody who is actually sick. No. But he has to try. And maybe some days are others. Now, Imam Malik ibn Hazm said something very interesting about somebody who is elderly. الشيخ العجوز اللذان لا يطيقان الصوم لا يلزمهم الفدية. الشيخ والعجوز, the man and woman who are very elderly, who cannot fast, they said لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah does not place a burden on any soul more than it can bear. And they say that they can break their fast and they do not have to pay any kind of atonement for that. They don't even have to pay a fidya, because it is not obligatory on them anymore to fast, because it's beyond their capacity now. Now there's a verse, of course, in the Quran, in the verses of fasting, وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ. There's two opinions about this ayah. The meaning of the ayah first is that for those, it could be understood as for those who are able to fast, يُطِيقُونَهُ could mean two meanings. Actually, the same word could have opposite meanings, and that in Arabic happens frequently. There's a word that can have the exact opposite meaning. How do you understand the meaning from the context? يُطِيقُونَهُ means they have the capacity to fast. They have to pay an atonement for not fasting in the form of feeding the poor. You can also understand it as those people who have difficulty fasting, they atone for not fasting by feeding the poor. What does this mean? So the most scholars actually said that this verse is abrogated. Mansukha means that initially when the fasting was prescribed for the Muslims, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Muslims the options. Either you fast the month of Ramadan, or if you don't want to fast, it's up to you, but you have to pay and an atonement, and you feed the poor people for every day that you do not fast. So they were given that option. That option was given initially, which means that if you are able to fast and you don't want to fast, this is what it means here, then you can feed the poor for the days that you do not fast. This is the saying of most scholars, and even many of the Sahaba, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Mu'adh ibn Jabal, Abdullah ibn Umar. But Abdullah ibn Abbas, for instance, says something opposite. He says يُطِيقُونَهُ means this ayah is referring to the elderly people and people who are just basically chronically ill, who are not, because the person who has a temporary illness, that person can break his fast, but he has to make up for the days by fasting other days. فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ, he is like the traveler. فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ, he has to make up with other days. What about the person who is chronically ill, or the very elderly who are basically chronically ill as well? They cannot really, don't have the capacity to fast. This verse can apply to them based on the interpretation of Ibn Abbas, that for those people who find it difficult to fast, and on a permanent basis basically, those people, they can atone for that by feeding the poor. For every day they don't fast, they feed the poor. So it could be understood both ways, okay? Now let's see the opinion of some scholars on what to do if somebody does not fast. For instance, Ibn al-Humam في فتح القدير وهو حنفي, he's one of the Hanafi scholars. He says والشيخ الفاني الذي لا يقدر على الصيام يفطر ويطعم لكل يوم مسكينا. This is what most scholars actually said, that if a person chronically, permanently cannot fast, like an elderly person or somebody who is permanently ill, like a diabetic, for instance, but not all diabetics, because many diabetics can actually fast, and for many diabetics sometimes it could be actually good for them if they adjust their medication. So they know what to do in these kind of scenarios. But if the doctor says to them, here we go back to the doctors. If the doctor says, no, it's dangerous for you to fast, then we take the opinion of the doctor in this matter, okay? But let's say somebody who has chronic, like kidney failure, for instance, and he cannot fast. and all are elderly. He says here he doesn't have to fast, and he makes an atonement by that, by feeding the poor for every day. Shafi'iyya, Sharh al-Muhaddab al-Nawawi says same thing. الشيخ الكبير الذي يجهده الصوم أي يلحقه به مشقة شديدة والمريض الذي لا يرجى برؤه لا صوم عليهما بلا خلاف. In this madhab, of course, when he says بلا خلاف, he's talking about his own madhab. ويلزمهم الفدية على أصح القولين. And he says here, and they have to give an atonement, pay an atonement, feed the poor, على أصح القولين, which means that even in his madhab there's two opinions. Some people said they feed, and some people said they do not have to feed, just like Imam Malik and Ibn Hazm said. Okay, you follow this? But he chose that they have to feed. Madhab al-Hanbali as well, al-Khiraqi, he made a commentary on a book called al-Mughni. He says, وإذا عجز عن الصوم لكبر أفطر وأطعم لكل يوم مسكينة. Same kind of thing. Also, he breaks his fast, doesn't have to fast, and he feeds. Imam Malik, he got so old that he couldn't fast himself, and he wasn't fasting, but he was paying the fidya. But he said, although he was paying it, he says, ولا أرى ذلك واجبا. He did it as a precaution. He was paying the fidya, but he says, but I do not feel it's obligatory, and that's his madhab. Ibn Hazm was very clear about it, as I showed you earlier. والشيخ والعجوز اللذان لا يطيقان الصوم لا يلزمهما. قال تعالى لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها وإذا لم يلزمهما الصوم فالكفارة لا تلزمهما. He says, if they are not obligated to fast in the first place, why do we tell them to do kafara? Okay, so that's a very nice opinion. And actually, the author of this book, Tamim, she chose that opinion, that somebody permanently, chronically ill, they don't have to worry about it at all. They don't have to fast. They don't have to feed the poor for not fasting. Okay, so that makes things easier on many people. Now, and also, some people start worrying, oh, did I not, I didn't fast, did I feed the poor, I didn't feed the poor, then he passes away, then his heirs or children start worrying, do we have to fast for him, do we have to pay? So this opinion is a very nice opinion, it's a strong one too. What about is there time, how long have we been going now? If it's 10 minutes, we'll leave the pregnant and the murda to the next time. How long? 8 minutes? Yeah. So we have a couple of more minutes, and we go to 10 to 12 minutes. So the pregnant and the breastfeeding.
Before that, you about the feeding.
Yes.
Every day, or what about for whole month?
Yeah. Yes. For feeding, he can. Anas ibn Malik used to just collect 30 poor people and feed them at once. And subhanallah, the qira'at also you can learn that from the qira'at. Fidyatu ta'am miskin. Fidyatun ta'am. I get confused because the qira'at. In Hafs, what is it? Fidyatun ta'am miskin. The other qira'at, most of the qira'at say fidyatu ta'am masakin. So makes it collective. Fidyatu ta'am masakin. Now. It's how Anas ibn Malik used to do it, and he can give it in advance or later. Like he doesn't have to wait until the day passes to feed. He can say, okay, from the beginning of Ramadan, I'm just going to finish all my feeding now. For the pregnant and breastfeeding, there's actually 3 opinions on this matter. I'll mention them real quick, and maybe we can elaborate next time. The first one. If they are worried about themselves, then they can break their fast, and they have to make up for it some other day, and they don't have to feed the poor. And the people who chose this opinion basically compared the breastfeeding woman and the pregnant to somebody who is sick. Somebody who is sick, a temporary sickness, and just like فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخْرَى. Now, this is the opinion of Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Abu Hanifa, and Malik as well. قال مالك الحبلة كالمريض تقضي ولا تكفر. Now, Imam Malik made this distinction a little bit here. He said this to the pregnant, but for the breastfeeding he says تقضي وتكفر. For the breastfeeding تقضي وتكفر. Okay. This is if they are worried about themselves. But they said if they are worried about the baby itself, the fetus, and they were not worried about themselves, they had no difficulty fasting themselves, they're excused not to fast, but they have to make up for it, and they have to also give a fidya as well. وطعمان وهذا مذهب إليه الإمام الشافعي وأحمد. وقال مالك الحبلى تقضي ولا تكفر والمرضع تقضي وتكفر. قال أبو حنيفة يفطران ويقضيان ولا يطعمان. So there's different opinion. Finally, I'll tell you what she chose in this book. You can choose any of those opinions. That if she is worried about herself only, basically the bottom line, she may not fast, and then she has to make up for the days. If she's worried about the baby, then she has to. She's accused not to fast, but she makes up for the days and she does the fidya as well. The second opinion is that they may not fast. وَيُطْعِمَانْ وَلَا يَقْضِيَانْ, and they just feed the poor as an atonement, and they don't have to make up for the fasting. That sometimes is easier for some people as well. So because pregnancy, which means that she's going to miss the whole month. She has a whole month, and if there's continuous pregnancy or pregnancy plus breastfeeding, then she might have 2 or 3 Ramadan that she has to make up for. How can she make up for all this time? So that opinion, and it's a very legitimate opinion as well, and this is based on the saying of Ibn Abbas about the verse وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ, based on this verse and the interpretation of Ibn Abbas. For those people who find it difficult on a long-term basis, basically, he says فدية طعام مسكين. الآية ليست منسوخة. حديث ابن عباس وفيه ابن عباس he said that وإذا خافت الحامل على نفسها والمرضع على ولدها في رمضان قال يفطران ويطعمان مكان كل يوم مسكينا ولا يقضيان. وهذا مذهب ابن عباس. Okay. The third opinion is that they are allowed to not fast. They're excused and they may not fast, the pregnant and the breastfeeding woman. ولا يطعمان ولا يقضيان. They don't have to pay. That's the easiest one. They don't have to feed the poor, and they don't have to make up for those days. Now, and this is again Madhab Imam Ibn Hazm again. He said this for the elderly people who cannot fast, and also he said this the same thing for the pregnant and breastfeeding woman. Now, inshallah, next time we'll read this in more detail, what the scholar said, and then we can take a tarjih. She usually gives something called ta'qib wa tarjih at the very end, which is very useful because it is she tells you what she feels, and of course she's very knowledgeable. What she feels is the strongest opinion out of all this, so you don't get lost now. But all these opinions are very legitimate opinions within the scope of Islamic law. So if somebody chooses one of those opinions, it's not wrong. It's not wrong at all. Now, Imam Malik, he chose an opinion, he did something different himself. You can he gave an opinion to people, but he did something different just to be on the safe side. Everybody has his choice in this matter now. مؤلفة الكتاب اسمها أم تميم. لسه عايشة واخد بالك؟ she's still alive, and actually she's a very sick lady as well, she has chronic diseases herself, yeah, but she's a big scholar in Egypt.